Hello dear students, I hope you are having a good time at home. Today we are going to learn chapter number 3 in your syllabus, that is classification of plants. Well, plant taxonomists. Taxonomists, you know, are the people, the scientists that are concerned with the grouping, naming and classification of the plants. Okay, R.H. Whitaker was the first person to study and classify plants. Anyway, plant taxonomists have classified plants on the basis of a number of related characters such as size, habitat, and the ability of the about the production of flowers and seeds. Right. So on the basis of the production of flowers and seeds, plant taxonomists have classified plants into two broad categories, that are cryptogamous and the phanerogamous. Cryptogamous are those plants which do not bear flowers and which do not bear seeds, while as phanerogamous are the seed bearing plants. So there are two broad categories of plants, that are cryptogamous and phanerogamous. Cryptogamous are non-fruit bearing or non-flower bearing plants, while as phanerogamous are flower and fruit or seed bearing plants. Anyway, so cryptogamous are those plants which do not produce flowers, do not produce seeds, which are incapable of sexual reproduction. Okay, and these plants, the plants, I mean the cryptogamous, the plant body cannot be divided, cannot be distinguished between the roots, leaves, and the stem. Other anyway, and the phanerogamous, and these plants can be divided into root, stem, and leaves. Okay, taxonomically as well as evolutionary, gymnosperms and angiosperms are considered as the advanced plants, while as the thallophyte, this cryptogamous, they are considered as the earlier forms of plants. Okay, the simpler forms of plants, and the phanerogamous are considered as the advanced forms of plants. Anyway, cryptogamous are further divided into three categories, that is thallophyta, bryophyta, and pteridophyta. Cryptogamous are divided into three more groups, that is thallophyta, bryophyta, and pteridophyta. Thallophyta, as the name suggests, okay, the plant body consists of the thallus, means the whole plant body consists of the thallus and cannot be distinguished into the roots, stem, and leaves. The classical example of the thallophyta is the algae. So thallophyta basically contains the unicellular plants. Unicellular plants are the earliest unicellular plants, and the plant body cannot be distinguished between the root, stem, and leaves. Okay, and the classical example of the thallophyta is the algae. Algae, you know, they may be either unicellular or multicellular organisms, and they have a green pigment called chlorophyll. So we can say that the thallophyta, they are capable of the photosynthesis because they contain the green pigment called the chlorophyll in the algae. There are other groups of algae as well, like they contain other pigments like the brown. They contain the brown pigment, okay, or they contain the red pigment, which are called as the rhodophyceae. Okay, so those plants, those algae are grouped in the thallophyta. There are also some kelps. Kelps are the plants which are present in the oceans. Okay, the plants that are present in the oceans, they are called as kelps, and kelps themselves are the thallophyta. Actually, kelps themselves are the algae, and you will be surprised to know that kelps that grow in deep oceans can grow up to a height of about 60 meters. Anyway, the next group in the cryptogamous is the bryophyta. Okay, the classical example of the bryophytas are the mosses. Okay, the plant body cannot be distinguished into the roots, stems, and leaves. However, there are some unicellular structures through which the plant body can gets gets hold on the substratum on which it is growing. Okay, it has fine thread-like structures which we call as the rhizoids. So roots are absent in the bryophyta, but what is present in the bryophyta? It is the rhizoids. Okay, here also in the bryophyta, the plant body cannot be distinguished into the root, stem, and leaves, and the example is the mosses. Okay, now come to the pteridophyta. In pteridophyta, the plant body can be divided into root, stems, and leaves, can be distinguished into the root, stem, and leaves. However, the problem is that the pteridophyta, it does not bear fruits and flowers. That's how we can distinguish pteridophyta from the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. How? The pteridophyta does not produce flowers, so does not produce seeds. Okay, here in pteridophyta, the stem may be underground, which we call as the rhizome, or the stem may be above ground. All right, And the pteridophyta, they're also they usually grow in the moist soil. Now, phanerogams. Phanerogams, I told you, actually, it is plant kingdom. Two broad categories are the cryptogams and the phanerogams. Phanerogams are the ones which bear fruits and flowers, which bear seeds and flowers. And these phanerogams are further divided into two categories, that is gymnosperms and the angiosperms. Gymnosperms, they do produce flowers, they do produce seeds, but here the seeds are naked, right? It means in case of the gymnosperms, the fruit is not enclosed in a fruit. Sorry, the seed is not enclosed in a fruit. One thing I forgot to tell you about the pteridophyta is that in the pteridophyta, the leaves, the leaves they have on their undersurface, okay, they have smaller fruit bearing structures we call as the strobili, and the strobili contain the spores which can germinate into next generation pteridophytes. Anyway, phanerogams are divided into two categories. There's gymnosperms and the angiosperms. Gymnosperms, they produce seeds, but here the seeds are naked, means the seeds are not enclosed in the fruits as in the case of the angiosperms. So we can say angiosperms are the, they have the seeds, but the seeds are not naked. They are enclosed within the fruit. However, in the gymnosperms, the seed is naked. Okay. The angiosperms are further divided into two groups, that is dicots and the monocots. As the name suggests, dicot means they have two cotyledons. They have two cotyledons. The example of dicots is pea, gram, bean. Okay, they have two cotyledons, hence the name is dicotyledons. And the other category is the monocots. Monocots or the monocotyledons are those plants which have only one cotyledon, and the example is maize, rice, and wheat. Okay, so this was the classification of the plants on the basis of what? On the basis of whether they produce fruits and flowers or whether they do not produce fruits and flowers. There are some other basis of categories like we can classify plants on the basis of size as well. On the basis of size, there are three categories, that is herbs, shrubs, and trees. What are herbs? They are small plants. They have soft stem, soft and slender stem. Okay, and the examples of the herbs are spinach, cabbage. Okay, these are the examples of the herbs. And next is the shrubs. Shrubs are the medium-sized plants. Medium-sized plants. Like there are many branches, many equal length branches that are growing from the base of the stem. Okay, so which gives this as a bushy appearance. So we can consider all the bushes as they are the shrubs. And next are the trees. Trees. In case of the herbs and shrubs, the stem, it never becomes woody. It always stays small, and it always stays soft. However, in the case of the trees, the stem, it becomes hard and woody, and we call the stem of the trees as trunk, and they grow very large. The trees grow very large. The example of the trees is eucalyptus, cedar, pinus, deodar, poplar tree, chinar. These are the examples of the trees, and the examples of the shrubs are, for example, rose. Okay, is the example of shrub. Now, plants can be also categorized on the basis of their lifespan, like how many years they live. Plants, they can be annuals, they can be biennials, and they can be perennials on the basis of their lifespan. What are annuals? Annuals are those plants which complete their life cycle within 1 year. Within 1 year means they grow, they produce flowers, they produce seeds, and they ultimately die. This all happens in one single year, and the example is rice, wheat, and maize. Rice, wheat, and maize. These are the examples of the annuals, or the grass is the example of the annuals, because they complete their life cycle within 1 year. What is life cycle? They grow, they produce flowers, they bear seeds, okay, and they ultimately die. In case of the biennials, the complete life cycle takes 2 years to complete. The lifespan, the life cycle takes us 2 years to complete. Those plants are called as the biennials. Example is radish, turnip, and carrot. What happens in these plants? During first year, they grow, they also store food in their underground stem, and in the next year, in the second year, they produce flowers, fruit, and ultimately they die. These plants are called as the biennials, and the example is radish, carrot, and turnip. And number third is the perennials. Perennials are those plants which live for many years. Okay, every year they produce flowers and fruits. Okay, but they do not die. They continue to live and they continue to grow throughout throughout their life, and they have a lifespan of many years. The example is eucalyptus, banyan, and chinar trees. All right. Plants can be also categorized on the basis of their habitat, like what habitat they live in. Okay, they can be hydrophytes, mesophytes, and xerophytes. Hydrophytes are those plants which live in water, submerged completely or half submerged. Okay, those plants are called as the hydrophytes, means they complete their life cycle, their life cycle totally in the water, whether underwater or whether on the water. Okay, such plants are called as the hydrophytes, and the example is water lily, hyacinth, lotus. These are the examples of the hydrophytes. Next is the mesophytes. Mesophytes are those plants which require water for reproduction. Which require water for reproduction, means they require water at one point in their life to complete their lifespan. Okay, so these plants, mesophytes, they live in the places, uh, they live in places either they are rich in moisture, or partially in the during an year, partially at some means 3 4 months they may stay in contact with the water. Such plants are called as the mesophytes. The example is rice. Okay, rice, we know that we irrigate rice for a few months, it has to stay in the water, so we can consider rice as the mesophyte. Next is the xerophytes. Xerophytes are those plants which live in dry, hot, and humid conditions. Such plants are called as xerophytes. And in the xerophytes, the leaves, they can be reduced to spines. The example is cactus, opuntia. These are the examples of the xerophytes. They live in extreme hot weather conditions. So this is all about today's lecture. Thank you for watching me.